Today in our Focus on Life segment, we introduce you to a civil rights leader who believes everyone, even the unborn, should be protected under the law. Dr. Alveda King, the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was the guest speaker at an annual pro-life event in the area. Reel to Reel's Carolee McGrath has her story.
Before I even knew about pro-life and the little babies in the womb and all of their civil rights, my mother conceived me in 1950 and she wanted an abortion.
It was a stunning secret in the King family for decades. Dr. Alveda King's own mother almost aborted her. But it's a story that King, the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., now shares as part of her personal witness for the unborn. King was the guest speaker at the annual Mother's Day dinner, sponsored by Pioneer Valley Mass Citizens for Life. She's the pastoral associate and director of African American outreach for Priests for Life and Gospel of Life Ministries. The pro-life advocate credits her grandfather, Dr. Martin Luther King Sr., for saving her life.
That was a family secret until just a few years ago. My mother finally told me the whole story. And so I had a champion for life in Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. all his life.
King is the daughter of the late civil rights activist Reverend A.D. King and his wife Naomi Barber King. While most people would associate the King name with the civil rights movement, not too many would include the rights of the unborn as a civil right. Alveda King, who grew up watching her father and uncle fight for equality, makes that connection.
Based upon the teachings of my grandfather, Dr. Martin Luther King Sr., my uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., my daddy, Reverend A.D. King, and now Father Frank Pavone and many of the pro-life advocates that I work with, the National Black Pro-Life Coalition, I know that life is a civil right. And so I just speak out for life.
But her passion for the pro-life cause comes from pain. She had 2 abortions herself, back when she used to believe that abortion was nothing more than a choice.
So I had heard stories from Planned Parenthood and other places. It's a blob of tissue, it's not a life, it's not a person, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. And those were the things that I had believed.
King says she supported a woman's so-called right to choose for many years, but during that time she suffered in silence, emotionally and physically, from the 2 abortions. She says the turnaround came when she allowed Christ back into her life.
But in 1983, my uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words became so real to me when I recommitted my life to the Lord. My uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And I realized that the tiny little babies in the womb were people with 46 chromosomes, and they had no representation.
King has decided to be their voice and has dedicated her life to educating people about the harsh reality of abortion. At the Mother's Day dinner, she didn't hold back. She showed a clip of what some might call a controversial film, MAFA 21. MAFA 21 charges that Planned Parenthood's founder, Margaret Sanger, was targeting minorities with birth control and abortion.
MAFA 21 is a documentary that gives irrefutable proof and evidence that abortion and the birth control movement is tied up with the eugenics movement, and it brings genocide to countries, to America, to our nation.
Abortion proponents say MAFA 21 is misleading, and some claim it's even propaganda. But Alveda King points to the numbers. According to the Guttmacher Institute, a research arm of Planned Parenthood, the abortion rate among African Americans is 30%. But because they represent only 14% of the population in childbearing years, that means African American babies are aborted at a rate of 4 times higher than white babies. King says this was not part of her uncle's dream.
They try to make it seem as though Martin Luther King Jr. would have agreed with abortion. But not only did he say injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, he said the Negro cannot win if he's willing to sacrifice the futures of his children for immediate personal comfort and safety.
One of the big points that Dr. King made is that we're all part of one human race. So no matter what the color of our skin, no matter what church we belong to, how old or how young we are, we all need to stand together and stand up for life. Pastor C.S. Cooley of the United Temple Church of God in Christ and Tim Biggins, the chairman of the Pro-Life Committee for the Diocese of Springfield, have vowed to work together. Pastor Cooley says he's very concerned about abortion in the African American community.
In order to make sure that you don't have to worry about a race, is the best way to get rid of them is don't have them around. And then let them get rid of themselves, so they don't think that you're doing anything to them.
Biggins says Alveda King laid the groundwork for people to unite for life.
She has such an elegant way of boiling things down to very simple notions without making the issues too complex. And she has that great history of her family and all the civil rights work that they've done. And she knows how to tie the two together to show us how the causes are really united. That, the pro-life cause is really a fundamental civil rights cause.
Alveda King, a proud mother of 6 and grandmother now too, is hoping her uncle's words will continue to inspire people in the pro-life movement and perhaps reach those who support abortion rights.
Abortion does hurt women. I've had it myself, and I know. Mentally, emotionally, often physically. There are repercussions. And so if we're really interested in women's rights, if we're really interested in human rights, then we're going to do something so life-affirming and life-nurturing and life-protecting that will protect everybody.
And staying true to her family's tradition, King says she'll work for the rest of her life to make sure that everyone can realize the dream her uncle died fighting for.
Let it shine.
Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
And Dr. Alveda King is also the founder of King for America, a faith-based organization enriching the lives of people spiritually, economically, intellectually, and socially.